Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, in our video, the content for our video, the 8 content. And for me, I will explain about four out of 8. That was introduction to electro-pneumatic, familiarization with fluid sim, relay, proximity and non-proximity sensor. Okay, we will go on. For introduction to electro-pneumatic term is defined from the integration of electrical and pneumatic control circuit. It was operated by electrical and pneumatic power. The electro-pneumatic equipment and system is an integration of electrical and mechanical component with compressed air source. Electro-pneumatic is a pneumatic control system where air pressure and direction of valve are controlled by an electrical current. Pneumatic is a method to transfer the energy from our point to another by using actuators, which are driven by a gas under pressure. So, for the summary, we can conclude that the control of pneumatic component by electrical signal is known as electro-pneumatic. Okay, we go to another slide. Familiarization with fluid sim. These are the symbols that have in the fluid sim. As the example, this the supply element, actuator, valve, mechanically operated valve. This is others, and this. Okay, from the circuit, the light blue line was the line with the low pressure, and the dark blue line was the area with the high pressure. And the right line was it showed that there was current flow through that line in the circuit. Relay. This is a symbol of relay. Example of symbol of relay. Relay was an electrically operated switch used to control a circuit. It controlled the opening and closing of the circuit contact of an electronic circuit. Okay, how relay works? When switch is closed, the coil will produce electromagnetic and pull the switch in relay. When the switch is pulled, it will complete the circuit and lamp will light up. When switch is open, it will break the circuit. Because of it, the coil will be de-energized and lose their electromagnetic and release the switch to its ordinary place. Okay, for proximity sensor. This is an example of the symbol of the proximity sensor. Proximity sensors that are capable of detecting the presence of nearby object without coming in physical contact. Work by emitting an electromagnetic field, and change in field is detected by proximity sensor, also known as non-contact sensor. There are 5 types of proximity sensor. That was inductive, capacitive, magnetic, ultrasonic, photoelectric. For inductive, the inductive proximity sensor can detect metal target approaching the sensor without physical contact with the target. Inductive proximity sensor are roughly classified into the following 3 types according to the operating principle. The high frequency oscillation type using electromagnetic induction, the magnetic type using a magnet, and the capacitance type using the change in capacitance. Okay, for summarize, the inductive proximity sensor, it will detect the metal after the frequency change. So that how it detects something without touching the sensor. For capacitive proximity sensor, the way a capacitive proximity sensor works is that one of the conductive element or plate is inside the sensor itself, while the other is the object to be sensed. The internal plate is connected to an oscillator circuit that generates an electric field. The air gap between the internal plate and the external object serves as the insulator or dielectric material. When an object is present, that changes the capacitance value and registers as the presence of the object. For magnetic proximity sensor, used to detect magnet only, actuated by a presence of magnetic field, have high operating range than inductive sensor, can detect magnet object through non-ferrous metal, plastic or wire. This means it can detect more precise than inductive sensor for range. For ultrasonic, utilize sound wave to detect object. Color and transparency do not affect their ability. Ultrasonic sensors send an ultrasonic pulse and receive it back. Time difference between send and receive signal is used to calculate the distance between the object. Used in manufacturing, robotic automation for detecting long-range objects. Photoelectric utilize light-sensitive element to detect object. It consists of an emitter and light receiver. Range varies from few mm to 60 meter. The emitter will produce the ray that the light receiver will receive, but if the light receiver did not get the ray, it will know there are objects between them that block the ray. That was how photoelectric proximity sensor work. For non-proximity sensor, there are two types of non-proximity sensor, that was float switch and limit switch. For float switch, there have internal float. They have internal float. In the internal float, they have reed switch, float, magnet, stem, stopper. The principle of float type level meter is that float move up and down due to buoyancy. A reed switch in a stem is actuated by a magnet in the float and output detection signal. However, the level meter may not measure liquid with some viscosity and specific gravity. So to simplify it, when magnet touch the reed switch, it will make the float switch trigger. And for the limit switch, are used to automatically detect and sense the presence of an object, or to monitor and indicate whether the movement limit of that object has been exceeded. The original use for limit switch, as implied by their name, was to define the limit or endpoint over which an object could travel before being stopped. It was at this point that the switch has engaged to control the limit of travel. Okay, that's all for me, and my friend will continue it. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will explain about direct and indirect control valve. On the left side was indirect control valve, and on the right side was direct control valve. The difference between these two was for indirect control valve, it have relay, and for direct control valve, it does not have any relay. I will show you the simulation. For the direct control valve, you can see the dark blue was for the area with a high pressure, and the light blue was for the low pressure, was the area with low pressure. When I press the switch, it will extend the single acting cylinder, and I press the brake, it will retract the single acting cylinder. But if I release the brake, it still remain for single acting cylinder to extend. To back to their initial condition, I have to break the circuit. But wait, the red line in the circuit was the current flow in the line in the circuit. Okay, I break the circuit. It will retract the single acting cylinder. As you can see, it's a simple circuit, was totally direct. Okay, that's all for direct circuit. And for indirect circuit, it was a changeover, one brake, one relay, and one switch. When the switch is closed, it will power the relay. The relay will trigger to change over, and it will change to this and make the circuit and make the solenoid energize. When the solenoid energize, it will trigger the 3-way and make the single acting cylinder extend. When you want to break the circuit, you have to push the brake, and the single acting cylinder will be retract. We stimulate. As you can see, if I push this, I push the switch, it will complete the circuit. The red line will show the current flow in it. The dark blue line was the pressure, area with high pressure. If I want to break the circuit, because the single acting cylinder remain extend, I have to push the brake, and you can see single acting cylinder was being retract, and the blue line at this area was the area with low pressure. I will repeat again. As you can see, when I press the switch, it will complete the circuit and change the changeover, because the relay will trigger it. And if I want to break the circuit, I have to push the brake. Okay, that's all for me. I hope you understand with it, and thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Hazim bin Muhammad Sakri. Today I will talk about the pressure sensor. So as you can see, pressure sensor, what is this? A device to detect, regulates or monitors pressure and converts perceived physical data into an electronic signal. So what is before to understand pressure sensor, first you need to understand the pressure. Pressure is an expression of force exerted on a surface per unit area. We commonly measure the pressure of gases monitoring. In the standard unit for pressure is the Pascal. So or Newton per area square meter. It's not a pressure switch. Pressure switch work by signaling a switch, but pressure sensor send a readout signal. Pressure switch also a type of pressure sensor. So pressure transmits in the pressure pressure sensor have two things: transmitter and transducer. A pressure transducer is an electromechanical device for translating pressure values into voltage, while a transmitter translates pressure values into currents. So next slide. How do they work? So for the switch, in the mechanically actuated pressure switch, the pressure at on cylinder surface. If the pressure exerted exceed the spring force and the return spring, the piston moves and operate the contact set. For sensor, a pressure sensor work by converting pressure into an analog electrical signal. Most pressure sensor work using the piezoelectric effect. The pressure sensor detect the pressure and can determine the amount of pressure by measuring the electric charge. As you can see, this thing, if a pressure being a force or a pressure have, the pressure is convert to the and this origin shape. If there are force or pressure, the psi will increase. It's already convert by a transmitter or transducer in this sensor. So the next slide. There are three types of pressure sensitive sensor. One, pressure switch with mechanical contact. It's binary output. Pressure switch with electronic switching, binary output signal, and electronic pressure sensor with analog output signal. This this is for the diagram. This is pressure switch. This is in the fleet sim or in its symbol. This is a diagram type switch. It's used a diaphragm, and this is analog pressure sensor. It's used this at the number 1 as a pressure, and this is the symbol. So next is I will talk about a solenoid valve. So what is this? Solenoid valve is a device that works by convert electrical signal to a mechanical signal energy. This device using an electromagnet to actuate a plunger, which allow a valve to open or close. Why we use this? Because autonomously and remotely control the flow of liquid, gas or liquid, flow of fluid. So this device can be found in almost everything, especially in heating system, vacuum or washing machine. Why we use this? Because it's simple and durable. Yeah, it inexpensive, easy to repair, use low voltage for remote or automation, variety of size and shape. It's small, just small. How it works? It consists of two solenoid. This upper part is a solenoid, and the lower part is the valve. So that's why we call it solenoid valve. There are two solenoid valve type, normally open and normally closed. So the normally open open when de-energized, means it's already in open condition and fluid can pass through it. When solenoid is energized, electromagnetic field force produced. This will force plunger downwards, overcoming the spring. So this is the spring already extend. When it's energized, the plunger will overcoming the spring and go to downward, and close the valve that prevent fluid to pass. For the normally closed when it de-energized and fluid cannot pass through it. When solenoid is energized, electromagnetic field force produced. This will force plunger upwards, overcoming the spring and open the valve that prevent fluid to pass. So how to we determine which pull downward or upward plunger? It depend on the current direction determine pull or push force. So there are solenoid consists of two-way solenoid or three solenoid valve. There are variety of solenoid valve. They have their own specific purpose. So next, there are two solenoid valve type. There are two things: direct and versus indirect solenoid. So the direct operated. The direct operated for a normally closed solenoid valve, normal closed pula. There's a direct acting operated. Direct operated solenoid have the simplest working principle. In a normally closed valve, the media flow through a small orifice which can be closed off by a plunger with a rubber gasket at the bottom. In a direct acting solenoid valve, the plunger is held down by a small spring made of ferromagnetic material. An electric coil is positioned around the plunger, and as soon as the coil is electricity energized, a magnetic field is created which pulls the plunger toward the center of the coil. The operating principle is the same in normally open valve, except it works in the opposite way. For the indirect solenoid operation, indirect solenoid valve operate differently to direct operated solenoid and use the differential pressure of the media over the valve ports to open and close. Indirect solenoid valve need a minimum pressure differential at around 0.1 to 0.5 bar, depending on the size, and are separated by a rubber membrane, also known as the diaphragm. The membrane in an indirect acting solenoid valve has a small hole which allows the medium to flow up and upper compartment. That's it. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Hazim bin Muhammad Sakri. Today I will talk about 5 two-way solenoid impulse valve. Before that, what is impulse valve? 5 two-way solenoid impulse valve. The solenoid valve is controlled by applying a voltage signal at the solenoid coil and remain in this operating position even when the signal is cut off. So when the signal is the current is here, so it will remain if this solenoid is extend, it will remain extend until current is applied to the opposite one. Right. So we start. I already simulate this. So if I press this button. So in initial condition, push button is not pressed. The solenoid valve is connect to the MB2. This MB2 now is connected to MB2, and relay is de-energized. This relay is de-energized. The both K1 and K2 is de-energized. So the double acting cylinder is in retract. When the push button is pressed, relay K1 is energized. The solenoid valve change its position and connected to the MB1. This MB1 will active, and this will be extend. If I press this, so when I press this, it will extend. So when the double acting cylinder is fully extend, the BG1, it's a limit switch, will detect it. So it will energize the K2. This BG1 limit switch, this BG1 will energize relay K2, and the energized solenoid valve change to position MB2. So now MB2 is energized, active. As I said, the impulse valve, when if it's no BG1, it will remain extend. So but with the BG1, it will detected the fully extend, and now it will energize the K2 relay. The K2 will change, make the solenoid valve of MB2 energized. So they will current activate the opposite section of double acting cylinder, and it will retract it to its normal position. So what the function of this valve, one-way control valve? It will make sure to only one-way flow control will make up the throttle valve and check valve. So that's it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Binti. So I will continue my part, which is single and double acting cylinder. So single acting cylinder, here we can see this is the pressure pot, and this one is spring. Then this one is a piston seal, and this one is vent pot, and this one inside in the cylinder is rod. So how the single acting cylinder working? So this is the basic operation of single acting cylinder. Based on the picture above, the single acting cylinder gets one pneumatic port to fill and empty the air chamber. Cylinder moves in one direction by filling the air chamber and returns by the spring force. Next, the double acting cylinder. This is the picture of double acting cylinder. It also same with the single acting cylinder, but the double acting cylinder, the air pressure is start from here, then it will have a return flow. So the basic operation, PP, when push button is on, solenoid valve energized, then the cylinder extend. When push button off, the solenoid valve de-energized, then cylinder will retract. This is the example of the how the double acting cylinder works. Next, I will continue to present the direct and indirect control for single acting cylinder. So we can see here, this is a electro-pneumatic diagram that have been do in the foot sim. So what is the difference? This one is direct control and this one is indirect control, dominant on. So the direct control, input will control the output directly without applying any relay, while indirect control, the dominant on, input will be connected to the coil relay, while contact relay will be connected to the output. Then by pressing the SF1 and SF2 simultaneously, it will cause the cylinder to extend. Next, I will present the summary from webinar session with Pesto. There are two sessions, which is session 1 is pneumatic and session 2 is electro-pneumatic. So in pneumatic, what is a pneumatic? It is a method to transfer the energy one point to another by wing actuators, which one driven by gas under pressure. The pressure of pneumatic system is normally opening valve automatically by detecting its pressure and sending an electrical signal. So the advantage for using pneumatic, the storage of pneumatic, where the air can be easily transported in pipelines when over large distance. The speed is compressed air is very fast working medium, then enable high working speeds to be attained. And the disadvantage for pneumatic is the preparation. The compressed air requires good preparation. Dirt and condensate should not be present. The compression not always possible to achieve uniform and constant piston speed with compressed air. Next, the electro-pneumatic, defined from the integration of electrical and pneumatic control circuit, where it operates by electrical and pneumatic power. The equipment and system is an integration of electrical and mechanical components with compressed air source. Pneumatic control system, where air pressure and direction of valve are controlled by an electric current. So the advantage for using this electro-pneumatic, the electrical transmission time quicker, programming flexibility, greater sensor availability. The disadvantage, it has a small actuation force, physically large, power consuming for large force application. Then the difference of signal flow between pneumatic and electro-pneumatic control system. So this one is the pneumatic signal flow, and this one is electro-pneumatic control system. So the pneumatic is start from the energy supply, then signal input, signal processing, then lastly signal output. It needs common execution. Then from the electro-pneumatic components, it will start from signal input, then signal processing, signal output, and then command execution. So I will present the example of summary activity done from whole semester. So I will choose the timer on delay using 5 two-way solenoid impulse puff. So you can see here, this is the electric circuit, electro-pneumatic circuit, and this one is pneumatic diagram. So after drawing the pneumatic and electro-pneumatic circuit, we will do the analyze. So when SF1 is pressed, this one, and the MB1 energized, and the double acting cylinder will be extended. Here the double acting cylinder will be extended. So it will fully extend were detected by the VG1 here. So it will activate the coil timer on delay, this one, for 3 seconds. So the cylinder will remain extended for 3 seconds. So after 3 seconds, the normally open contact team will close, and then the solenoid valve MB2 will be energized. So when the MB2 is energizing, the double acting cylinder will retract back to the normal position. So this is in normal condition. That's all from me. Thank you.
And for suggestion, I think make a clear note, easy to understand, simple. That's all my suggestion. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Hazim bin Masakri. For comment, maybe I have no comment because I think there's a lot of my own mistakes, not to study well and not to prepare. I'm trying to do my best for the next online class. For suggestion, maybe lecturer could ready more tutorial video for every task, such as one video for 5 to valve, or one video for 3 way valve, for the basic understanding. Because when I'm doing this, whenever I feel loss or blur, I can find my answer. So I have to ask my friend many times. So actually I don't want to bother them. That's all from me. Thank you, Miss Sumaiya. You happy dunia wal akhirah, inshallah. See.
Suggestion or comment for teaching and learning improvement. So I choose the suggestion. A suggestion to playing some games after class end. So this kind of activities is to relax or to release tension for a while. So the example, to play a quiz in Kahoot based on what I've done in class before. So this an example of cathode. Yeah, that's all my suggestion. Thank you.